Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, Helen Edwards, and
January Liddell. Aloha.
We just want to say thank you for joining us. And before we get started, please remember to subscribe, share if this podcast touches your life today. And we appreciate you tuning in. So today we have an amazing subject topic. We were actually going to talk about life insurance if you heard our podcast last week, but we decided to actually talk about what me and January had just gone through this week. Tuesday, April 24th, we both attended the Art of Livin with Matthew McConaughey and a few other speakers online. It was a live 5-hour for me anyways. January, I think it was a little bit longer because she did VIP. So we're just going to share some of the key points that we learned from that. And I think that you will learn a lot today and be inspired. And if you were a part of the Art of Living live event, please share your thoughts. Please share what you took from it. We'd love to hear from you. All right, January, let's get into it.
Oh my gosh. So let me just share. I'm really excited that we're talking about this because it's always good to go into an event without any expectations. And one, I have not read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. I got it though. I got it yesterday. So I will be reading that. If you haven't already, I mean, even Tony Robbins was like dumbfounded by this book. He was like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. So if Tony Robbins can vouch for Matthew McConaughey, I believe that it's a good book. So Art of Livin', he had like 4 other guests. So Tony Robbins was one of them, Trent Shelton, Marie Forleo, and Dean. Sorry, Dean, I don't remember your name.
Dean Graziosi.
Dean, thank you. Dean Graziosi. And so one of the things, I'm just going to highlight one of the things that I liked about this, okay? Because I know we're going to talk throughout this whole thing. But the one thing that stood out to me was, I don't do overwhelm. And I love that phrase, I don't do overwhelm, because that gives me it gives me a boundary as to what I don't accept into my life. So it's easier to say, I don't like this. And when you don't like this, then it's easier to follow through because you don't like this. So when you say, I don't do overwhelm, then that gives you the mind frame of, right, I don't. So I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to do overwhelm. So anyway, that's just one, but there's many. Helen, what was it about this event? Because I know it was so last minute. I told you, I'm like, hey, you got to jump on this. What was it about this event that resonated with you?
Well, first I got to say, thank you for suggesting it to me because I've been attending seminars and events and for like 2 decades almost. I've been on this journey for a very long time. I've been to at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 Tony Robbins events. I've crewed 3 of them. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, but what was crazy is I was like, okay, here's another one. And I kind of had this little chip on my shoulder at first, like, oh, what am I going to learn? I've learned already so much, like I'm already putting in practice. And then I just heard myself say what I usually tell my clients and my attendees standing in my workshops and retreats. I say the 4 most dangerous words are, I already know that. So I was like, whoa, ego, slow down. There's always something to learn. There's always water to feed the soul and water your seed to grow. So I was like, okay, I'm going to come in here. Maybe there's something new. And there was actually, and I love Marie Forleo. I've been following her forever. And I just want to add on to what you said about the overwhelm part, because she actually is the one who got up there and started talking about that. And she said, overwhelm is not the zip code that she lives at anymore. And I was like, yes, Marie, yes. And she said, scientifically proven that, or science to back it up, that saying I don't is more effective than saying I can't, because I can't kind of gives you that victim mindset, whereas I don't gives you more of empowerment. It gives you choice to say, I don't do that. And, I love how she said, I don't do overwhelm. And then all of a sudden, everybody started spitting out, I don't do lazy. I don't do procrastination. I don't do broke, right?
Man, I felt that energy. Did you feel it? Because I know I felt it.
I
And
totally felt it.
right, it was like, and it was so uplifting and so like releasing. Like I felt so liberated. So one of the things that Matthew McConaughey had us do from the get-go was like, speak it out loud, speak your truth. And we're like, okay. So we're like, us like typing warriors, we're like, yeah, let's type it. And in Marie Forleo's, Forleo, I don't do this. I don't procrastinate. I don't do lazy. I don't, I don't do, oh my gosh, there were so many I don't do. But you're right. We do step into that power of, I got this. Power is like a control, almost like I got it. I don't do that. When you say I can, that kind of gives us a little bit more pressure that we gotta fulfill it. It's not a bad word at all. I can is still a good phrase. But I don't actually gives more of a empowerment type of feeling. So absolutely. But I think that was the one thing with the whole entire 5 hours that we were there, and then extra for me, right? It didn't feel like 5 hours, by the way. It felt like it went by so fast. I was like, wait, I want to know more. But it was so good because it allowed us to interact with Matthew McConaughey, with Dean, with Tony, with Marie. So it gave us this like edge, and Matthew and all of the other guests were reading out the things that we were writing, and that was really good because it felt like, hey, they were listening to us, they heard us, and they see what we're typing. And so great time. And just like you, Helen, I've been to so many different things. I haven't been to 5 Tony Robbins. I think I've been to 1, but I was like, I wonder what else we're gonna learn today, and what more can we learn? But there's always something to learn, and there's always like new. It's evolving, right? It's growing even as we're speaking. There's still things that are growing, and so all right, I'm gonna share what Matthew McConaughey said because I wrote it all down. Follow the science, and you'll find the art. Follow the science and you'll find the art. I really love, there's so many beautiful quotes, and I wish I had 5 hours to say it, but we don't. So we're going to give you highlights. All right. So these are the top 9 things, I think, or 10 things that Matt was saying. So number 1, why are we here? Number 2, illusions. Number 3, oh gosh, what was the number 3? I'll get back to your number 3. Number 4, complacency. 5, our greatest strength can be our greatest weakness. So it would actually, he was saying to focus on your strength. Keep on focusing on your strength because that will actually, you'll master that more than your weakness. Number 6, white lies. Number 7, imposter syndrome. Number 8, what is the boogeyman? Facing our fears and flaws. Number 9, gratitude. And number 10, trust. Okay, Helen, do you know number 3?
Number 3 is challenge yourself. Basically, toss the false identity.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, those are the 10 things that he talked about. And Matthew McConaughey, I mean, who would have guessed, right, that he was this wise sage? He also talked about Al Farka Tor. Trust and faith in your fellow men has no equal. You must know yourself before you know others. So that was another powerful thing he said. It's very eye-opening. I think a lot of this dealt with his book, The Green Lights. So highly recommend that we all read The Green Lights. Helen, maybe we can like have a conversation about that another time.
Oh yeah. So what's funny is me and Rob were on a road trip to Oklahoma, and I was like, okay, let's read a book. Let's listen to a book on our way, because we both like doing that or true crime podcast. So I was like, let's try a book. And we put on Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. And I'm not going to lie, like it was a little bit difficult because both me and Rob were laughing so much because he's so charismatic and enthusiastic. And Rob says, I can't listen to this because I can't take it serious because it sounds like I'm listening to a movie that he's in. And I was like, I get that. So I said, maybe it's better to read it in a book, and I decided at that point, I don't know if I could do audio with this because I think it's one thing I have to read. Because when I first started watching the live event and Matthew McConaughey comes on, the first thing I start thinking of is Magic Mike. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do I separate this? My brain felt confused. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit confused at first because my brain immediately went to watching a movie. And I was like, no, brain, no, this is real. He's sharing his heart. It's like I had to have a pep talk with myself. And it kind of made me think like how conditioned I am to actors and seeing them portrayed in movies. And I'm sure a lot of other people were like that. So I think one of the things that he did that broke that pattern in my brain, and maybe many others, was that he was playing the drums. And it just seemed like, okay, here's a guy who's just totally just chilling, doing him and speaking from the heart. And I think that kind of broke me from that pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I think because my son is an actor, right? So we've been on set. So I'm like, oh, they're just human, you know? But you're right. When he was doing the drums, that was also it was very therapeutic when he was doing the drums. And I almost felt like I was in a poetry session, like an open mic. I'm like, oh, okay, it was so good. Yeah, I haven't heard the audio, but I would assume like if you're listening to it and you're like, that makes sense why you were thinking of him in the actor mode, because you hear his voice, different when you read it from an actual book. I get.
Yes. I wanted to share a couple highlights too that I kind of took away from it. One of the things he talked about was trusting yourself 5% more. And I think that's a big deal, because a lot of the things that Matthew McConaughey was saying is be real and be 100% with yourself and don't lie to yourself. And these are things that I've been practicing. In fact, I wrote the book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom, and it was very liberating because I told all, nothing hidden. And it started with being real to myself. So I 100% agree with that. And as somebody who completely trusts myself and is, I believe, to be 100% honest with myself, I thought, what does 5% more look like? And you can always go that extra mile. And I thought, wow, there's definitely more to uncover with this. So I really love that he said that. He said, start admitting to start living, come clean with yourself. So pretty much it goes hand in hand with being truthful with yourself and trusting yourself. And the last thing I want to say that Matthew McConaughey said was, speak more life into your life. And that just says it all. It encompasses everything. Speak more life into your life by paying attention to the words that you tell yourself, right?
Oh, yes. Speak more life into your life. I like that because you're right. It does encompass everything. The whole 5% more trust. I wrote that down too. Vibrations of trust. The more we give, the more we get, and I love that, he's talking about really being self-aware. It all bottles down to being more self-aware. And he mentioned selfish. That was another thing he said, selfish. He's like, you're gonna like this word. I'm like, really? I'm gonna like the word selfish? Like, my whole connotation of selfish was only thinking of self, but his connotation was different. His perspective was different, and it was more like, if we want to be legit, we got to admit, you got to be more like thinking of you like, how are you as a person? Who do you bring to the table? And he's talking about like self-worth, like really getting to know who you are, because when we're selfish and we like are mindful of our time, and Helen, we were just talking about this right before we got on the podcast, our calendar is gold, because our calendar has everything that we're going to do for that day, and we need to follow the calendar and what it says. And that's pretty much what Matthew was saying was, the self-worth, self-awareness is key, and I think the other thing that I like, because there's, oh my gosh, there's so many golden nuggets, that it's pretty phenomenal that we're, we got a lot in that short time. I know I say short, but it was like 5 hours, but we really did gain a lot. One of the other things I liked, Trent Shelton said, I'm custom made. I'm custom made. Hello. How often do we say that? I don't say that. I've never said I'm custom made. Yes, I am custom made. And when you own that and when you say it out loud, it makes you feel like, damn it, I'm unique. I am one of a kind. Whoever I am, I'm one of a kind. And I think what I got out of all of this is that we have the power in our minds to be who we want to be, to embrace who we are. And it's a matter of stepping out of that comfort zone because it is hard. It's like a lot of us always think of others, right? And we want to help others with people pleasers, all of these things, right? But at the end of the day, we cannot love somebody else without loving ourselves first. And I think that was the one thing that I got out of this is that you got to love yourself and put boundaries and Helen says it all the time, protect your throne, protect your throne.
Yeah, speaking of Trent Shelton, I never knew who he was, never heard of him really. I was kind of like, who's this guy? And he was so intense and he was very passionate, I guess I should say, because I really felt the passion coming through when he spoke. Some of the things I took away from him was when he said, your perspective can either be your prison or your power. And that was so powerful. Another thing he said is, your next level might not be upward, but inward. And that was okay. I'm going to get back to that one. I want to say two more things I got from him. Rejection is the ultimate protection for a new direction in your life. Woo, that was fire. And then the last thing that I really, really took away that I absolutely loved was small mindsets can't comprehend big visions.
Oh my gosh, I love that you took all those notes and I loved everything that he said. I've been following Trent Shelton. He has a lot of different videos out there, but just the way that he speaks is like it's so like magnetic and you just at the end, remember at the end where he was like just close your eyes and then he was speaking life into us. And I was like, yes, yes, like I felt it, man. I wish I could replay that because that was amazing. Um, but yeah, I think the other thing of, I did write that down. Small mindsets can't comprehend big visions. The other thing I liked what he said was certain things are not meant for me. Just as simple as that. Certain things are not meant for me. We could be a round peg trying to fit in a square peg, and it's not gonna fit. And I think we try so hard to make things fit. And at the end of the day, sometimes some things are just not meant for us, and we just gotta move forward.
His analogy of, and I believe it was his, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was his analogy about the prescription glasses. Do you remember that one?
That was actually Dean.
Okay, was it? Okay, so, well, one of theirs, they had the analogy of the prescription glasses and how when, your friend, let's just say your friend wears prescription glasses and you take them off.
Correction, you were right. It was Trent. I was thinking Dean because Dean mentioned it, but it was Trent. Prescription for vision, not one size fits all.
Yes. Okay. So basically, the analogy was that your friend has a prescription glasses, and if you don't wear glasses and then you put those prescription glasses on and they're blurry to you, but to your friend, it helps them see clear. I just thought, or the analogy was that not all visions are meant for you, and for me, that really opened up my mindset even further than I feel it already is, because to me it spoke about judgment. To me it spoke about perspective, and not everybody has to have your same vision, and not everybody has to comply with what you're doing, and your vision's not for their visions. And I got so much from that, and it was actually very liberating for me because it allowed me to let go of a lot of expectations of others.
So man, just talking about this makes me want to do more. I want to learn more. It's pretty phenomenal. The other thing he said, and Trent did say a lot of he was dropping bombs like left and right. Prescription for vision, not one size fits all. Dive deeper instead of climbing higher. And that was really good for me too. That spoke to me because it's true. Like if we dig deeper into ourselves, the higher will come. but we have to like dig deeper first within ourselves. Oh man. So Tony Robbins, I'm gonna move on because there's like so many other like phenomenal things that people have said. Okay, the one story that I liked about Tony Robbins was the spin car. Now, if you're not familiar with the spin car, he was in like a race. He was instructed by a race car driver, right? So this race car driver, like, what did he say? It was like a Laguna Seca. Was it Laguna Seca? Anyway, he was there, so he had an instructor in the spin car, and the object is to just keep going, right? Keep going and not crash. That was the whole idea. Don't crash. So in the spin car, you gotta follow it, right? But then there's a curb, obviously. So once you hit that curb, Tony Robbins said, your tendency is to look at death. So you're like looking at death, and so he's looking at death, and the instructor like moved his face to look towards the other way, right? Instead of the wall, you're looking towards the other way to turn. And he was saying that, well, when you look that way, when you focus your attention on that way, your body is going to immediately follow in the direction that you focus on. And I love that analogy because it's so true. We can get so distracted and look somewhere else. And I can't believe he's like, yeah, well, I wanted to look at my death. Like that just got to me. And so anyway, focus. So he did this a couple times until he realized like, oh, yeah, I should focus this way and not death. So anyway, Tony Robbins, and I know he's one of your faves.
Oh, he is. I mean, he says it so simple. Pretty much focus equals filling. And focus on a deeper meaning, focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Sometimes it's the simple, I mean, so simple, but even I forget, one of the things I've always loved about Tony Robbins is how much he says, master your emotions. And that was a key, I should say, game changer in my life decades ago. I always say decades ago, maybe a little over a decade ago. Mastering my emotions, learning my emotions, becoming aware of my triggers, becoming aware of what sets me off, being aware of how I handle my emotions, what emotions I'm using. I mean, there's so much power in that. He actually did say something interesting. Let me see. I wrote this down. Tony, where you at? He says, what decision can I make right now to make an impact in my future life? That was a really good question that for me to ask myself. I really love that.
Yeah, he had so many different questions. What does it mean? What am I going to do? So I love that. I think that we need to be reminded, every so often we need to be reminded because we can get complacent. We can get used to like all the mundane things that we're doing, but events like these are so vital because they remind you like, yeah, I really do need to dive deeper, and I really do need to ask myself those questions. And Tony Robbins, one of the things I liked what he said was, life is happening for me, not to me, because that also resonated with me, and I've heard that before, but it's just always good to like just be reminded and just like feed it to me, like just let my soul nourish those words. Life is happening for me, not to me. We can get so bogged down and say, oh my gosh, traffic, oh my gosh, this person, and then like all the negativity will come. So when you think of all those negative things, all these negative aspects, that's all you're going to focus on. And what does Tony Robbins say about focus? Focus equals feeling. So if you're going to focus on all those, it's going to focus on all the negativity. You're not focusing. It's like the death. You're focusing on death. No, don't focus that way. Focus this way. And that's what Tony Robbins is saying. You got to focus this way. I loved Helen, and you and I was texting him like, holy moly, like the things that we talk about in our podcast is exactly the same things that they've been talking about. I'm like, wow, the two wolves story. Like, I don't know how many times I've mentioned it in our podcast about the two wolves, and guarantee, okay, I've talked to like a couple of people throughout this week. I'm like, you know the two wolves story. And they're like, no, what is that? I'm like, they don't know. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So we got to talk about the two wolves story. And I'm going to reiterate, the two wolves is about a grandpa and the grandson. And the grandpa says there are two wolves that are battling inside of us. And, they're arguing, they're fighting, all this. And the grandson says, well, which wolf wins? And the grandpa says, the wolf that you feed. I hope I said that right. Anyway, the wolf that you feed, right? So it's either positivity or negativity. Life is happening for me, not to me. It's because, oh, the other thing, when would now be a good time? When would now be a good time? That's amazing. It's not like asking you like, when do you want to do this? It's like, when is now? Now is a better time than never, right? And so anyway, I like that question. There's all these like, and a power posture. There's so many different things, but let's just talk about that. When would now be a good time? How did you feel when that question was asked?
The first thing I thought about when that question arose is me back in the day, or friends that I know back in the day, our baby stage of before enlightenment, before taking the road less traveled. It's when we were always saying, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I got to wait till I'm ready to do this. I got to wait till I'm ready to do that. And, so it's always the ready that was stopping us. And that question, when it's like, when is now a good time? It's almost like this entity saying, I am ready to make you everything you want to be, but you're the one stopping it. And I'm trying to get on your schedule, but you're not ready yet. It's a when would now be a good time?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely like I think when that question was asked, I felt like empowered. I felt empowered. I felt like inspired. Like, okay, now we got to do it now. He was talking about his daughter, right? So he mentioned his daughter and how his daughter was applied for college, and he asked that question to his daughter, when would now be a good time? Because I guess she was afraid. She was afraid that she wouldn't make it or whatever. And then at the end of it, she did. She actually, she not hired, but she talked to somebody, another speaker. Not that Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins is her dad, but she had to speak to another speaker in order to like understand what her dad was trying to convey, which is pretty much the same thing. But she had to hear it from another person. So funny. But yeah, now, so she did it. She did it now. She didn't wait. She just did it. And at the end of that session, her name was on the not billboard, but it was the marquee, the theater marquee with her name in Broadway. So his daughter actually fulfilled what she wanted to do, but she didn't wait for it. She did it now. All right, 9 mile marker. Oh
What
gosh.
about Dean Graziosi?
Yeah, let's talk about Dean. Okay, Dean. Dean talked about 3 C's and a P. The 3 C's and a P, and that's change, courage, confidence, and persuasion. That's what he talked about. He talked about so change. I think the one thing that got to me was his confidence. Work on it. Work on what I'm good at. So and it's highlighting your strengths, right? So when you're highlighting your strengths and you're moving more towards your strength, then that builds more confidence. Figure out the things that bring you confidence and do more of it.
I think for Dean, I really didn't write too much. He's a great speaker. I think he's really great. But I think what I got more from him is, and I don't know if I wrote it down, possibly not, but it was more on the sales aspect. He said something really awesome about sales. Oh my gosh, and I can't find what it was. Do you remember?
Yeah, he was talking about persuasion, and he was talking about, so like he was saying his wife was saying that she's not a good salesperson, but then the wife was like, we gotta try this restaurant. Oh my gosh, the food is just like, it just melts in your mouth. And then after like explaining her love for this restaurant, Dean was like, you are a salesperson. Look at you. This is what you're persuading them to do.
Yes. So I found the quick little note that he said. He said, sales is love when you love what you're doing. Sales is love. Service if you believe in what you're doing and it helps others. I think that's the main thing I took from him. And I really loved that he said that, because I've never looked at sales as love. I've looked at sales as something I don't love, something that I resist. But I think that I hadn't glued sales to what I loved together before. And when I did do sales, unconsciously, I was doing it because I loved it. I was talking about things I loved. I was talking about things I was doing, and people would just come, like clients would come to me without me pitching sales, because I didn't think I was ever doing sales. But in reality, I was doing something I love. I was making sales and service the thing I loved without the idea of selling. It was really interesting how he said that. So I took that from him.
I feel that because you know what we do, Helen, as a financial strategist, and I just posted this actually the other day. And I love it. I love what I do. So it doesn't feel like sales because I feel like this is something that will give so much value. Tax-free retirement account. Had I known about this years ago, oh my gosh, I wish I knew this years ago because I would set myself up, right? But now I do. I know it for my children. So I'm going to set them up for success, right? So when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And so that the whole sales and the whole persuasion, it won't feel like work because that's something that you're just like in love with. You're enamored with it because it's something that's so like, you gotta have this. Like I have this, you gotta have this because this is amazing and it'll give you, so much value and it'll just, uplift your life even more. I mean, and when you talk about it like that, it's like, I gotta have it, it's, yeah. So I do love that. And just like yourself, I actually didn't write that much about what Dean was saying, except for the confidence. Yeah.
So I think we've all really expressed a lot. I mean, like you said, there's so much more to go over. I think the video is available on YouTube for a short time, but you can also probably hear more from any one of these speakers if you just Google them and watch them on YouTube or podcasts or listen here. You can hear it. We're talking about it. But my next question really is, January, what did you personally take away that you've actually started creating action from the things that you learned?
Oh, good question. So there were several things that I'm already doing, that they've talked about, but I think the one thing that did resonate with me was I don't do overwhelm. So that is the one thing that I'm going to be working on for this month. Okay. So every month I'm going to try to work on something different. So I don't do overwhelm. I do like that because I can get overwhelmed easily because there's just a lot of things on my list of things to do. But at the end of the day, what is more vital and what is more important to me, and health is really important to me. So that's the one thing that I'm going to definitely focus on. So I don't do overwhelm. But the other thing that I really like to share is treat the end like it was the beginning. I don't remember who said that. Treat the end like it was the beginning. Act like you want him to be here. So it was just talking about how, like in marriages and boyfriend girlfriend relationships, there comes a point where you are fighting, you are arguing, you are getting to these like, tit for tat with each other. And he mentioned treat the end like it was the beginning. Go back to the beginning, go back to like, well, why did you fall in love in the first place? And I think that helps for me too, because and even in business, treat the end like it was the beginning, because in business, when you're courting, I call it courting, when you're courting your client, your lead, everything is like so like lovey-dovey, and it's like, oh, it's new, it's fresh, and then towards like midway at the end, it's like okay, you get kind of comfortable and you get kind of grounded in that relationship. But when you treat the end like it was like in the beginning, where it's like so fresh and so new, then that relationship will continue to flourish, right? Because we are remembering like how it was in the very beginning. So that's actually the one thing that I got from that too. There were so many things I got. Don't be selfish, right? And not be selfish. Do be selfish. Do be selfish. So selfish of your time. Selfish of your time. Be mindful of who you are, where you stand, your beliefs, and stand firm on them, and dig deeper, dive deeper into ourselves. So those are the three things that that resonate with me. What about you, Helen? What are the three things that resonated with you?
I love that, January. Thank you for sharing that. I also took away something in regards to relationship. One of them, can't remember who said it, but it was, if you want to stay in the relationship, you both win, not keep score. Score is a business transaction. And I'm somebody that I don't want to just hear it. I want to put these amazing quotes into action in my life. So first thing I did is told my fiance, I was like, this is what I heard. We're a team, you know, we both win. And he's so funny because now it's like, that's kind of like what we jab at each other. Hey, we're both winners. We're both winners. And that kind of stops us from bickering, you know, because relationships can easily get on the bickering track. And I'll just throw that bone, you know, like, hey, we're both winners. Let's not keep score. So that's one of the things I've put into action already, spitting that fire out. The other thing that I really thought was really good that I can put into action is the small mindsets can't comprehend big visions. The reason that really spoke to me is because one of the things that I've done in the past is I dumbed down myself, I guess you can call it. And I knew I was doing it. I was always trying to put myself smaller around people because I felt bad if I felt bigger than other people. And a lot of people told me they saw that I did that. They'd go, you play dumb around people, but you're so smart. And my fiance actually said that to me. He said, I see you act like you don't know stuff, but you do. You know these things, you know, when we're around other people. And he goes, why do you do that? And when he actually said it to me, that's when I realized how many years I had done that. So when I heard that small visions can't understand big, or small mindsets can't understand big visions, I thought to myself, I have been Debbie, I don't, what's the word? Dumb downing down.
I know what you're trying to say.
I'm overthinking
Debbie Downer. Debbie
Yes.
Downer?
No, not Debbie Downer, but hey, if you're out there and you know what we're trying to say, basically playing myself down. And, you know, for not that everybody has small mindsets around me, it's just I wasn't living up to my bigger vision with my view of myself around other people. And I started realizing I got to stop doing that. And start being proud, being selfish, in other words, of my achievements, of my looks. I work hard. I work out a lot, you know, and I realized I've got to start coming clean with myself, as Matthew McConaughey says, trusting myself 5% more. And so, you know, I'm starting to wear heels more. I'm starting to post more. I wrote a poem. I shared it in the Art of Living and on my Facebook and in the Facebook group. And I'm not a poem writer, so it was very vulnerable. I'll share it at the end of this podcast because it got a lot of attention and a lot of people were telling me they're saving it. And I was really scared to share it, which is funny because I wrote a whole book about my life. But poems, it's a little bit different because I thought to myself, I'm not a poem writer. I don't know how to write poems. Like, what is this? But it just flowed from me. And I thought, you know what, here I go. Here I go. I'm going to share it. Here's my whole journey in a nutshell. And I'm glad that it's inspiring a lot of people out there. So I will be sharing it. But I took that. I also took, you know, the trusting of 5% more. I took that because there was a lot of things, you know, we talked about this recently. I'm shifting into a new industry. I'm now a financial strategist. How do I let go of some things that I was once doing, retreats, coaching, all these things? And I realized I can't do it all. I don't want to do it all. I want to focus on the new direction I'm going because I really believe in it. I really love the idea of I really love helping people grow their money and protect their legacy. I love it. It's helped me. Like you said, we're the clients as well. And we want to help other people in this industry. So that is what I took from it, letting go and stepping in and just start moving towards that new direction.
I love it. I love it. I love everything that you said. And I love that you're stepping into your new chapter, because this is a new chapter, new journey. So I'm really excited. I'm excited. And I'm really excited to hear that poem. I actually didn't see it yet. So, but you know, I was like in and out of the doctors yesterday. So I did not see it. So I'm really excited to hear your poem. Interestingly enough, that you're feeling vulnerable to share it, considering like, girl, I am reading your book and I hear everything in that book, everything. And I'm like, she's nervous about this poem. What? But I'm excited to hear it. Yeah, I took a lot. I mean, there's so much more to absorb and to learn from that event. I really liked that Matthew McConaughey took the time 8 months to create this event. Okay, so that was dedication, that was time, that was, just all of his love, and everything into this. And it was this first live event. So we made history, Helen. We were with Matthew McConaughey on Zoom, along with Tony and, Trent, Marie Forleo, and Dean. Like, I'm just in awe. I'm in awe at everything that was said on that day. I mean, 5 hours, of being fed and nourished. That's pretty amazing. So if you're out there, I highly suggest, Google the art of living. They are offering a class, some kind of a course. And I'm not going to get any residuals from it, but if you're out there, I think, I highly suggest you try it. It is a really good deal, actually, if you think about it, because you're also feeding like 50 people. So you're donating money to, feed the hungry. So I think it's a win-win. And that if there's anything that I'm taking from this whole thing that we've talked about, is it's a win-win. It's a win-win if we love each other, if we love ourselves, right? Love ourselves, learn more about ourselves, and then bring it over to others, right? Because you can't not give what you don't have. Okay, so that is the one thing that I'm getting, is that whole win-win. And when you focus on the positivity, on nourishing yourself, on persuasion, right? Like the sailing, it's not sail, it's sail equals love. Then it's a win-win for each other. Just like, Helen and her fiance, they're my clients, and it was a win-win because I'm protecting their money, and now I'm growing their money tax-free. That makes me happy. But of course, I was compensated as well, right? Not from their money, thank goodness. So I don't see any of their money. Their money is their money, but I got compensated. So it's such a win-win scenario. And I think for Sexy Freedom Media Podcast and what we stand for, that is something that is our mission, right? Our mission is to have a win-win for everybody. And that win-win means like, hey, it's the two of us, but we're trying to blossom this out so that all of our listeners can also blossom and they can also grow. And that's the whole purpose for this podcast, is for us to grow with each other. There was another thing that I just saw. It was the collective. Hold on, let me see if I can find that quote. Collective versus, you know what I'm talking about, Helen?
No, I don't.
Serve the collective. Collective feeds and gives back. So when we serve the collective, like Helen and I are doing, we're serving the collective, and then the collective will also give back. So it's that win-win like relationship. We are serving you folks. I hope we bring you value. I hope that what you hear is golden, and we're dropping some golden nuggets. I hope that what you hear is nourishing your soul as well. And I'm really excited to hear what Helen has to say. I want to hear her poem. So Helen, are you ready for that poem?
I'm ready.
Woo! Let's do it.
Okay, so this is the first time I'm reading this poem out loud. It got a lot of recognition on Facebook, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but I'm ready for it. Here we go. Okay. The poem is called The How, and I was inspired to write this after doing the Art of Living live event. Let me breathe. The how. Negative, positive, negative, positive. Ooh, ouch, wow. I was the girl who always said can't. I was the girl who complained in a rant. I was the girl who could never afford. I was the girl who felt weak and destroyed. A past of trauma, poverty, scarcity, and blame. A mother, daughter, and woman feeling shame. I knew excuses like the back of my hand. I settled for anything that helped me stand. I never believed I could be a better me until my heartache became unbearable grief. I knew I had to change somehow. I was drowning, falling, and I couldn't get out. But one day, a seed was planted. You could be successful, is what I heard. Could it really happen? Could I become that girl? I began to dream that night of myself as something new. Tears flowed down as I visualized me a new view. Maybe I can be someone successful, someone wealthy, someone happy. Maybe I can make my mother proud, my son smile, and find someone to love me. The seed began to grow. My thoughts began to change. Hope began to rise, but the battle within got more insane. See, I was trying to break free from years of programming. I fell so many times, but kept trying to step towards what I knew was meant for me. I loved, I lost, I grieved throughout this journey. I fell sick and shed the old me almost completely. And then one day I woke up and made some big moves. I didn't have money, but I wouldn't let that be my excuse. I figured out how by not giving up, and that alone put me in the front of my own come up. Seminars, books, podcasts, and more. I was hungry for knowledge to keep moving forward. 2 decades later, I'm as happy as can be because I made the choice to keep watering my seed. I did become successful and am still trailing on, but many of storms I had to weather and keep rising above. I'm so grateful I took the road less traveled. If I hadn't, I'd still be stuck in the gravel. Today, I'm thriving. Today, I'm thriving and continue to grow. It's an everyday choice to decide which way you will go. Remember that.
Holy moly, holy moly, holy moly. That was beautiful. I was reading along with you because I did see your Facebook post. Beautifully said, beautifully done. I love it. I love your last line. It's an everyday choice to decide which way to go, which way you will go. Remember that. It is every single day. It's a choice and it's a battle. And I think the battle of an entrepreneur, right? Because that's what we are. We're entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, there are so many silent battles that we face that so many people don't see. We have a lot of hats that we play, that we put on our head, and you went above and beyond that, and sleepless nights, right? And just countless hours, countless times, countless everything. And you just put your heart and soul into it. So I see it. I see you, Helen. I see you.
Thank you. See that last part? See, even in my mind, I'm already being like constructive criticism, like, ooh, how did you mess that last part up? You pressed the wrong button and the poem disappeared. But what I think I was trying to do was tell a story in the simplest form possible to give others that opportunity to see that there is somebody that was once like them. Because in the group, there's a mixture. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of different types of people, and we're all at different parts in our journey. But the ones that really kept jumping out at me were the ones that kept saying, I can't, I don't have the money, I wish I could do that. And I thought to myself, how can I be a beacon of light in posting something? Because I don't want it just to be about me. I want it to be about the, like you said, the collectiveness of all of us. So that's what I shared, and that poem will be in Nothing Sexier Than Freedom 2, my second book coming out. So
I'm excited. That's one thing I love about you, Helen, is that you always think about how this would affect others, and how others can absorb it and resonate with it. So yeah, that poem is definitely a story of triumph. It's a story of, well, hey, look, you came from this life, and it's like this like uphill battle, right? That's kind of how I see it. It's like this uphill battle. And that's the story, that's your story, and it could be many other people's story. I know for me, just like yourself, I had this uphill battle, things that I had to, I had to overcome. I think all of us have something to overcome, whether it's lack of money, lack of belief in ourselves, lack of confidence, insecurities play like a really deep role. And that was the one thing that Matthew McConaughey mentioned. And I was shocked because I'm like, Matthew McConaughey has insecurities. What? Never have guessed it from like The Most Beautiful Man, right? I think that was one of the cover of the magazine. He's the most beautiful man. But he was saying, yeah, he had insecurities, going on not on stage, but on camera, just the way he talked. And that was so humbling, to hear that, hey, even somebody as powerful and as amazing as Matthew McConaughey also has his insecurities and continues to have them. So I think it's great. It's great that we are talking about this. There's so much more to talk about. So much more.
Yeah, we might have to do a part 2. But
I'm down.
Go ahead and let's go ahead and wrap this up. And again, thank you everybody who tuned in and chose to listen to us. I hope you got a lot of notes out of this. I hope you got a lot of inspiration out of today's podcast. Please share it and support our podcast. If you feel like you really got something from this, you can buy us a coffee. Our links are in the show notes. And by buying us a coffee, we appreciate you, and it does support our show. So thank you so much. Oh, January, where can they find you?
Thank you. You could find me on Facebook, VIP Finance Builders, or IG at VIP as in Paul Finance Builders. You can also find me on my website, JanuaryLiddell.com. That's 2 L's, .com, or LinkedIn, January Liddell. Helen, how can we find you?
All right, everybody, you can find me at Hell of a Journey with 1 L, Sexy Freedom Media on Facebook. You can also join our Facebook group, Sexy, Successful, and Soul Fed. Go get my book, Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. It is available on Audible and Amazon. Thank you, everybody, again for tuning in, and have a wonderful week. Ahia.
Aloha.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at SexyFreedomMedia.com.